Okay, so we are live, and I want to welcome all of you awesome people who join us for our blog, for our stream. Some of you are going to be listening to the replay on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and of course, you are going to see us on our blog. Well, I am so excited today. For those of you who know me, welcome back. And for those of you who do not know me, I am Marsha Lynn Hudson, and I am a social media and brand strategist. And I help entrepreneurs, success driven entrepreneurs, build a brand and grow their business on social media. And today I'm very excited to be welcoming Aaronica Cole. She is an awesome blogger from Atlanta. Isn't that great? And we're going to hear her story today. And so, as you guys know, we kind of started our interviews in March in Women's Month, and we've just been having some awesome women on the show. So I am happy to have her here today, and she is going to, and we are going to get started. Without any further ado, I want to welcome Aaronica B. Cole, and I'm going to let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her journey.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Marsha. I am so excited to be here. So again, a little bit about me. My name is Aaronica, and I do live in the Metro Atlanta area now. I'm originally born and raised in New York, which of course I will forever claim because, the Big Apple, I will never be rid of my soul, right? So a little bit about my journey. I went to Spelman and I have a BA from psychology and business management. And then I went on and I have an MBA with a concentration in marketing. Initially, when I went off to college, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to become a pediatrician. I'm going to save all of these kids. It's going to be wonderful, right? But then I registered for both chemistry as well as physics at the same time. And I decided that I think I might do better with kids' minds. And so I switched my major to psychology, and I was like, this is going to be awesome and amazing. And I was like, you know what? If a child is hurt or if something is going on with them, I don't know how to separate myself from kind of what they're going through. So I left that all together and I went into human resources, and I was like, this is it. This is the perfect match of business as well as like psychology, right? Because human resources has a lot of you're in essence helping out people, which is really what I am driven by, and it's helping people. And I did the corporate thing for some time. And I actually got laid off in 2009, like along with a bunch of other people during that depression, right? And I was just using that time to kind of do some soul searching. But then I wound up pregnant, and I was homeless for a bit of time. So I moved in with my mom and got back on my feet. I had my daughter, and then I started back working again in corporate America. And I think that when you have children, right, they motivate you in a different type of way, right? You no longer settle for certain things because you want to give them the world. And I always told myself that I didn't want to be a hypocritical parent. I didn't want to be the type of parent that said, do what I say, not what I do. So keeping that in mind, I worked really hard to move fast in the corporate world. But I hit a glass ceiling when my husband and I faced some racism at work. And I was just like, you know what? I think that I'm done here. I think I'm going to leave. But at this point in time, I had been in and out of the blogging world since about 2006. And in 2006, blogging was simply telling a story, right? Like we were telling stories, we were typing. It didn't matter what pictures you used. None of that actually mattered. But what mattered is that the story that you told. So if you were a blogger back then, you were an exceptional storyteller, right? Or you were giving really great advice, or you were teaching people something, and that was it. You didn't have to be this photographer. You didn't have to be this social media expert. You didn't have to do any of that. You told a story, and that was it. And then after I had my second child, I decided not to go back to work. And I was like, you know what? I can make this blogging thing really work for me. And so I did. But I thought I was going to be an overnight success. I thought that as soon as I started my blog, I was going to be like rolling in money. That's not what happened, right? because so often we hear about these overnight successes, but we don't realize that they aren't actually overnight successes, that they are actually work, that they are actually the results rather of work for years and years that nobody just really knew about, right? And so then when we see them blow up, we're like, oh my God, they're overnight successes. No, they are not overnight successes. We just didn't see the work they put in. And I have to understand that for myself. And so I worked hard. I worked really hard. At the same time as having a blog, I also had a store where I sold baby Ankara pants, the harem pants, and I would make them and I would send them out. And it was overwhelming. Okay. So one of the things about me is that both myself and my social media are reflective of who I actually am. Like, my social media is not a highlight reel. I'm very honest on there because I believe that honesty is definitely the best. And I like to be authentic. So, cut to about 3 years after I started my blog is when I really started to bring in money, and I still wasn't rolling in it, but it was good enough for me to really begin to support my household. Um, I added an additional child, so now I've got 3 kids, and, now when the pandemic hit, it kinda hit my creativity, I went from having all of this creative energy and being able to really channel it into, my site, and when my kids came home and they stayed home and they didn't go back to school for 2 years, I was like, "Well, we got to figure something out." And actually, during that time, I had been approached by multiple friends of mine, as well as just people that I knew, and they were like, "Hey, we really love what you're doing with your social media. Can you do it for us too?" And so I moved from the role of being influencer and being the hero of my story to now being the guide and helping people to create these communities and create this story for themselves. So now I blog, yes, and I'm still an award-winning blogger and I'm still making money from my blog. However, I am also teaching people how to come along with me. So now I am a social media strategist. I am a blog coach. I am a business coach. And now I'm teaching people how to do this for themselves versus them kind of twiddle their thumbs and do all of the YouTube University and kind of figure it out for themselves and shortening that time frame for them to have their own success.
Wow. I love that. I love that you want to be authentic, and that is the best way to be as you are, showing up on social media, creating a brand. I love that story. And now you have 3 kids, and I love how you said you weren't, we are not overnight successes. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, right? And then you see us do something like, wow, they were overnight. No, we've been putting in years behind the scene. So let me ask you this, and I love what you said, how it's like Donald Miller in his book I read, Brand Story, and he talks about being the guide and your client is the hero. I love how you said you're the guide. So let's say if someone hears you on the podcast, or they hear you or see you as we're streaming or later on when they watch the replay, how would you say that if they're busy like you? I mean, you 3 kids, your wife. How could you tell them how to be able to do all of this and still manage their business and still balance what they want to do? Because what you're doing is a lot, and so many times people are like, "I'm just overwhelmed. I don't know how to balance it all." So, how do you balance all of that?
I think the idea of balance, or the idea that we have of balance, that society reinforces, that we're supposed to have balance over a day, right? Or we're supposed to have balance over a week, or there's a specific time frame where balance is supposed to come into play. And it's time to get rid of that notion, right? Because one, society is not set up to make moms and specifically women successful in working, right? Because there are so many demands. We are the domestic engineers, right? So we're the ones who keep the home functioning, right? So we are meal planning, we're grocery shopping, we're keeping up with the cleaning, we're doing all of the things, right? And then we're doing that while trying to grow in our careers, right? Because let's be real here, they are not paying one person enough to support an entire family any longer because the cost of living is on the rise, right? Salaries are not on the rise unless you're out here like, really negotiating and really and have those honed negotiation skills so that you can result in success, right? Then we've got to be doing the extracurricular activities. My kids run track. I'm the track coach as well. So and then you try to take a vacation, right? So society does not set us up for success in balance. The way that I see balance, or quote unquote balance, is we are all given a certain number of balls that we're juggling, right? Some of these balls are ceramic, some of these balls are plastic. You have to know which ones are plastic and can be dropped, and then they just bounce back up into the rotation versus the ceramic balls that you have that if you drop, they shatter. In my life, for me, my kids are ceramic balls. My marriage is a ceramic ball. My home is a ceramic ball. Right. And there are certain aspects of my business that are two ceramic balls, but not every aspect. And I think it's important that we learn to prioritize things that really actually need the prioritization versus some things that may not. Like, it would be nice if this got done. So I start my day off with my top 3 things that need to get done. If nothing else gets done that day, and those were the only 3 things that I got done, I have success. And I think it's important because we will often have these super long to-do lists. Like, I've got like super long to-do lists, right? And if we don't go through all of them, we feel like we were not productive. And that's not the truth. The truth is that we may not have prioritized our list of things that we needed to get done properly, or we actually did not need to get certain things done and we rather wanted to get them done. It's really all about learning what is really a priority in your life versus what's not, and really prioritizing those things appropriately.
I love that. I do the same thing. I have a journal here that from one of the ladies that I follow, Erin on Demand, and she has a top three journal, and I love it. And in that top three journal, I pretty much I do the same thing. I do my top three. And so you're right. I have a long list too, but if I get my top three priorities done, I feel like, okay, I was successful today. And I think too many of us, we're wives, and we have our husbands and we have our families and we wear all of these hats. I think we're trying to do too many things in one day. And then that's when we're like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. Instead of picking maybe 2 or 3 of your top
Mhm.
priorities, I like that analogy about the balls, top three priorities and getting that done, because it's like you don't have to do everything. I think it was Jim Rohn that said, success is just a few simple daily actions every day. You don't have to do so many things. So
Yeah.
I love that, picking those priorities and trying instead of trying to do so much. So you mentioned that after 3 years, your business just kind of took off. What would you say was the one pivotal thing that caused it to take off? I know you said you have been doing social media, and I know you probably have been doing some other things. What would you say was that turning point that you could tell women who are doing that, because it just doesn't always happen overnight? What happened that it made your business just kind of take off?
This is going to sound very like idealistic, but it just clicked for me. You know, um, I don't want to say something like I didn't have a choice, because I did have a choice. I could have gone back to work. I have, degrees, I've got skill sets. These things could have absolutely done well back in corporate America, but I made the decision to succeed, right? During a time where I could have made a different decision, because after my first year, in business for myself, we had blown through the savings that I had set up for us. Just in case I didn't make a profit, because I didn't, we couldn't afford to pay our rent. So we had these things that were lined up, or that spoke to my lack of success, or rather my failure. But instead of choosing to allow failure to define what I would be able to do, I chose to fail fast, make the necessary adjustments that I needed to in order to have success, and then apply those lessons quickly. So I was not successful. You know, I wasn't always successful managing time. And honestly, there are still days where I struggle, right? Because I was just on vacation last week. My vacation actually highlighted some gaps in my business. And literally, as soon as I returned from vacation, I'm working to bridge that gap, to close them, right? Because as your business grows, there's always going to be something that reveals itself that needs to be done. right? And even though I like to pride myself on being an excellent communicator, it's also coming up that there's some work on my communication that I need to do. And I think that being adaptable and not taking the failure as a final sentence and taking that failure as a pivot point is definitely key.
That is great. So now you're the guide. I love that for people. So for people who are thinking about, I want to get into blogging, and I know you're on Clubhouse, so be sure and follow her on Clubhouse and on your profile. You were talking about how you help people with streams of income with their blog. So if there are some people who are going to be listening or hearing, and they're thinking about starting a blog, or how to monetize their blog, or just getting started, what to do, how could you help them as the guide if they wanted to get started and they were like, I really need to talk with her? How could they reach you, or how could they get started? I mean, what do you have for them as far as getting started with blogging, or just
Yeah.
teaching them something about that lane?
So, excellent question, right? One of the things that I wish that I had learned about before I made the decision to pursue blogging at this level that I have been is understanding the power of one, a business plan and keeping it updated, right? Because if you're blogging for business, which you should be, and it should always be part of your marketing plan, because blogging is a more than $400 billion industry right now, right? So in 2020, it was 400 billion. We are in 2022. It's growing consistently, right? I wish that I would have just understood that there is so much power in affiliate marketing, right? Because yes, sponsored content is great, it's guaranteed income, but the idea of not having a cap on how much money I can make, whew, now that is powerful, right? I wish I had learned how to really create and nurture my community, because I didn't understand the impact of community at that point in time. So, what do I offer though, right? And why work with a blog coach versus just Googling all of the things, going to YouTube University, right? The amount of time that you spend Googling things and hoping that that's what you need is just a waste of time. Time is money, right? Many of us are already strapped for time because we don't get that back. Time, we do not get back. Money, we can make, we can spend, we can replace, we can make more, right? As we spend, you don't get that time back. And so when you work with a coach like me, we cut down on that time that it takes for you to be successful. Right. So going from starting from literal starting point, like from choosing where to host your blog at, how to identify your niche, how to figure out what your consistent posting schedule is looking like, how to make all of that work with your social media so that way you have just a consistent reflection of what's going on your blog with your social media so that way you're able to monetize both, setting up true advertising budgets, how to set up a marketing objective. When you work with a coach, they work with you one-on-one to determine what these things should look like for you, as well as how to plan within the energy reserves that you have, right? Because many of us, we don't have 24 hours in a day like Beyonce has, right? Because we're the cookers, we're the cleaners, we're doing these other things. Our 24 hours looks a little different. So we have to be that much more efficient with it. Working with a blog coach allows you to do that.
Yes, yeah. So they could go to YouTube University or Google University, and I tell people sometimes when you're tired of just rolling, going on what they call the hamster wheel, or year after year, I want to do this. I've been wanting talking about this, and a year after year passing by, and you thinking, oh, I can do it myself. I got enough information, or you sell Clubhouse and you get information for free. And I tell people, information is free, but transformation you got to pay. So
This part,
sometimes you need a coach. You need a coach, and like you say, the coach can get you from A to Z in such a small amount of time. We
mhm,
just don't have that kind of time. Whereas you've been trying to do this for years and doing it yourself, and you get this
yes,
free information, and you're trying to make it work, and you're going to Google. Why not get someone who's been there, someone like you, who's made it a business, so that you can cut out that time and grow to being successful faster. So sometimes you just need a coach. So I want to ask you lastly to tell us, what would you give a piece of advice for any business woman who is thinking about a business or maybe struggling in her business, and what could she do to kind of move forward? And then lastly, be sure and tell us how we can reach you. Let me see, someone put on here. What's a good? Oh, someone has a question, Aaronica.
Okay.
So I do want you to tell us some advice you would give for our
Yeah.
business owners, and I do want you to tell us where we can reach you. I did put in the chat, but what's a good budget for marketing your blog? That's
So
the
honestly, working with things like Google ads, working with like Facebook and Instagram advertising, as well as LinkedIn advertising, I would recommend to start out with a budget of $100 just to make sure that you have set up your audience properly, because you will get a response within that first $100. In fact, you could start out with something even as small as $25 to make sure that your audience is set up properly. You don't want to invest something like $5,000 into the wrong audience and not have a payoff, right? But build out your audience, start out with that $20 and monitor it daily just to make sure that you're marketing to the correct audience, and then build out your budget from there, right? Because it really depends on what kind of income or what kind of money you have available, right? Someone who already has six figures and has, a lot of disposable income can afford to invest, say, $1,000 a month into the marketing of their blog. But someone who is only, say, reaping a benefit and may only have a budget of $50 a month, if you have the right audience set up, that $50 a month is going to go a long way, and it'll begin to grow the way that you need it to, right? And you'll begin to get those hits that you need to, so that way you can begin to apply for things like a media vine where you have advertising run on your site, and then your marketing budget just begins to expand. But start out with the $20, build out your audience to make sure that you actually have that done correctly, and then add more.
So can people who work with you, do they learn that? You teach them how to market their blog when they work with you? You teach
So
that?
right now, I don't have a program that is specific for running ads. That's not something that I have right now. It is something that I'm working to build out.
Okay. So I like that advice because yeah, you don't have to spend $5,000 on
Yeah,
Facebook to get I'm John Lee, one of the guys that I follow, he talks about $5 a day on Facebook to grow your business. So
yeah.
when they market, let's say you're saying, let's say you spend $25 a day, or you have 100 a month to start off. When they market, should they be trying to, in the ad, should they be trying to send people to their blog,
They
or
should.
should they get
In
a,
fact, it should absolutely position their blog as being a must-read guide, right? Even if you're doing video for it, because video is so hot right now, and you get such a really great return on video, period. So if you're doing a video, send them back to your site, right? And make sure on your website you're already ready to capture an email address, right? Because social media, while it's beautiful, it's great, you can keep in contact at any point in time, we're at the mercy of people who own social media accounts, right? And they can shut it down, they can change an algorithm, right? Which we know about. And now we've lost our contact with all of our people that we've built up with, right? Be prepared to capture an email address so that you can really get into those people's emails, right? And use that as part of your marketing strategy, as well as your marketing budget, right? So I would probably put more money into a sales funnel and utilizing, say, something like ConvertKit versus a Facebook ad, only because I'm owning these email addresses and I'm able to get directly into that inbox, right? Versus be at the mercy of like the Facebook gods, or excuse me, the metaverse gods, and whenever they feel like showing my content.
Right, right. Because you can get hacked and lose all of your followers on Instagram.
Exactly.
But in your inbox, I preach email marketing because that is such an effective tool for growing your business. In your inbox, those are your people. And I like what you said, because we should have a lead magnet to people,
Mhm.
something that people are like, oh my gosh, with you, that you'd probably have 8 steps to getting starting your blog or something. And people who want to start a blog will be like, oh my God, yes, I want that. And in exchange, they give you one of their most valuable commodities, which is their email.
Yep.
So those are some great tips. So be sure and tell us, give us your, as we wrap up, give us your one piece of advice you want to give our business owners. And be sure and tell us, Aaronica, because I'm sure some people are going to want to reach out to you for blogging, because I believe blogging is, there's so many benefits to blogging.
There are, yes.
Yeah. So be sure and tell us, how can we find you also?
Absolutely. So my one piece of advice is make sure that you have the mindset, right? Because so often we can be deterred. In fact, I'm actually working on my mindset in this moment, to be completely honest, right? Because if we're being completely honest, at any point in time, something can happen, whether it be with our clients, whether it could be with our kids, whether it can be with our marriage, that shifts our mindset. And if we don't have the proper mindset for success, then we're not going to be successful. So mindset is definitely the ultimate thing that I would say to focus on when you're growing your business, right? You have to have that growth mindset ready. You have to be ready with your success mindset. So if you are interested in reaching out to me, which I hope that you are more than welcome to see me on the interwebs. I can be found on Instagram at Aaronica Cole. I can also be found, of course, on Clubhouse Streets. My club is called the Six Figure Blogger Club, and I am Aaronica. I think just Aaronica Cole there too. I think I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
you are. If it's 650, you're easy to be found.
Actually, everywhere I'm Aaronica Cole. My website for this specific is aaronicacole.me though.
And that's where they can find your blog.
So my blog is aaronicabcole.com. I own all of the real estate on Aaronica.
All right. I am so excited. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Aaronica. I actually met Aaronica on Clubhouse. We've only been on there a little while, which my husband calls it crack house, but that's okay because he's still always on there. But I'm so glad that I met her when I heard her talking about blogging, because there's so many people who I run across and ask me about blogging, but I don't want to be everything to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love to just push me. Yeah, go call Aaronica. I don't want to be everything anymore to everybody, because we all know when we try to serve everyone, we actually serve no one. So hopefully you guys who are interested in blogging, there's so many benefits. Google loves blog. When you post that, fresh content, you grow your business. There are just so many benefits, and I'm sure when you work with Aaronica, she can even tell you how to monetize it eventually down the road. So thank you guys so much for being with us today, and I know some of you are going to be watching this later, and be sure and reach out to Aaronica Cole. I think you could just probably put her name in Google and find it everywhere, right? And we want to thank her for giving us her time. We know she is busy. She is a wife and mom of 3 and running a thriving business. So thank you so much, Aaronica, and we wish you all of the best.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome.